Hey, it's Soul, and today we're going to consider what account level progression in the World of Warcraft could be like. Okay, maybe I'm starting this a little bit fast, but I am pretty excited to get into this hot button topic that for some, leaning further into making stuff account wide in the World of Warcraft would save the game. There are a lot of folks, though, who don't see any value in that either, so consider this video to be a space where we can keep an open mind and share viewpoints. I mean, YouTube comments are like a great place for calm discussion. Let's dive right into this, but not before hitting the like button and subscribing for more of these kinds of insights. So account level progression is not an innovation. It's not new, not even to the World of Warcraft, but up until recently, the game more or less resisted it. Compromises have been made lately, but the WoW team has made it pretty clear that they're still trying to preserve a certain level of individual progression for characters, and that debate continues on what that level should be. What is meaningful individual growth and what is a meaningless chore because, we've been there and done that. Let's talk about another game that some critics want the World of Warcraft to be a little bit more like, that's been around, that does have forms of account level progression, and that is Diablo 3. It employs a few features that sit on the account level, one of which is called Paragon levels. This is a crude description, but it's a progression system that's unlocked at max level for characters where you gain experience to earn points, and these points can be plugged into stats. When you switch to a new or a different character, it can then benefit from the Paragon system. So if character 1 reached level 1000, character 2 will also be at level 1000. And if the player reaches level 1001 on character number 2, then character number 1 is also 1001. It's shared power on the account level. It's not all the power, but it's a pretty significant contributor. Also, gathered materials are shared on the account level. When picking these up, they don't go into your character's inventory bag, but into a special inventory that is shared across all characters. Also, all gear is bound to the account and can be traded freely through the account shared storage. Now, the gear is not duplicated. One would still need to move that sort of awesome between characters 1 and 2, so there's a bit of a drawback. And finally, there are smaller features like Kanai's Cube and the Altar of Rights, which, without really explaining what they are, they feature things to unlock, and its progression is shared between all characters. Diablo 3 is not the World of Warcraft, and the World of Warcraft is not Diablo 3. I'm not suggesting that gear must be account tradable to make the game fun, neither am I closing the door on these ideas out of some immovable principle. At various points in its history, the World of Warcraft has innovated, it has experimented, and it has copied. I'm just trying to soften you up to consider what is possible, and then you can form your own opinion. So let's experiment. Let's borrow from Diablo 3 a little bit and create WoW's version of an account level progression thing to see how viable it is. We're gonna call it the champion menu, and anything that can be shared across the account will be visible here in this menu. This is going to be an evergreen feature, where past reputations, maybe even expansion features from back in the day, can be managed, and future features and reputations and so on will also orbit around this menu. Now, again, this is account level, so even from your character select screen, you can hit the champion button and look at your account progression, like your achievements, your unlocked transmog, your pets, everything that rests in this shared space. Now, first, it sounds easy to just be like, hey, so there's no need for names and gimmicks and systems. Just make things account wide and be done with it. Video over, like, and subscribe. Account level progression, maybe it doesn't need a centerpiece, but for the sake of this experiment, I'm just going to argue right now that it'll help players understand it more clearly, and it can be advantageous for developing features as well. So let's first apply the champion menu into legacy content, the past 20-some years of the World of Warcraft. All the current account level systems will sit here. I already mentioned pets, mounts, transmog, achievements. We're familiar with WoW's character tab, and right next to it we see the reputation and the currency tabs. So the champion menu is very simply going to steal these tabs. It's going to rip the earned currency and the highest reputations from every character on the Battle.net account and mash it all together. All characters are going to benefit from these combined currencies. Our reputations are going to be, I guess, normalized to the highest reputation that we've seen on a single character. So if I'm exalted with the Ebon Blade on one character, cool, I'm exalted account-wide. But if I only got to friendly, then all 50 of my characters are still going to be friendly. We're not combining rep points, and I think that sounds fair enough. There are going to be consequences to making a move like this, though. Some folks will not react very well to seeing their hard-earned work on each individual character be kind of erased by this merge, so that's going to need to be addressed. There's no way to cleanly consolidate 20 years of experience, but I don't want to take up too much time talking about the what-ifs and the what-abouts, but it is important that past efforts are somehow preserved and respected and not, I guess, buffed out with a big overhaul like this. I should also talk about past certain expansion features like Azerite Essences and the Cypher Research Console, but I also shouldn't because we're already done with these and we're not exactly going back. I'm going to talk about it though, just to give you folks an example of what certain expansion features would be like if account level progression was always a thing. Patch 9.1 Chains of Domination introduced a number of features to an already feature-heavy expansion that needed separate progression for each and every character. This included domination shards with gear to slot these into, and for those of you who played through it, never mind how you felt about the effectiveness or the fun of domination shards, but I want to highlight how it was that they were required. Finding the shards mostly came from raid bosses. It was also mostly how you upgraded them. And you also needed special gear that you mostly got only from the raid that the shards slot into. Now you can slot up to 5 of these shards for bonus stats and effects, and completing a set added an additional bonus. You also needed a special item to swap these shards out. You had to finagle with your choices of crafted legendaries to make room. It was a lot to understand, but ultimately domination shards didn't turn out to be a popular feature that was thrown out as soon as that season was over anyway, so let's rewrite history. Sorry for the lack of talent, but this is a mock-up of how domination shards could have been managed if there was a champion menu in place. We would have a UI with 5 slots with which to place any of our earned shards and manage our set bonus. As we play the game on our main or our alts, we would earn the currency needed to upgrade shards, and we just plug it into the shards that we want to. We're also going to throw out the idea of the special socketed gear that got in the way of legendaries. The concept of this is reminiscent of the old glyph system, or Azerite Essences, or Soul Binds, only that acquiring and upgrading shards is shared across the account. I'm not going to get too deep into the details here. The point is we're able to earn, upgrade, and use everything across the entire account. We're not going to have the same situation as before, where raiders were really the only ones that were able to take advantage of this kind of system. The champion menu could have served to be an evergreen platform where these expansion features, aka borrowed power, could sit. Again, think of the Cypher Research Console, the Box of Many Things, or Azerite Armor, or Shadowlands Legendaries, or Corruptions, and so on and so forth. All of it could have been managed in this champion platform space menu thing. Now sure, it's not very immersive, I guess, but we now live in a WoW where we can change talents on the field. Not all, but many of these old features were tied to gear, which in my opinion made these features feel pretty frustrating because gear is not account shared or account tradable. Now, I'm not suggesting that gear should be able to be moved around, but that the champion menu could have been used instead of gear. That's why I'm trying to elevate this thing. It would have felt easier if corruption was as easy to manage as Azerite Essences, which technically was not gear dependent. Meanwhile, gear can stick to just being stats and set bonuses and sometimes a special effect here and there. The champion menu is something that, in my humble and very flimsy opinion, people would have been perfectly used to it if it was always in the World of Warcraft. We would have been fine if account-wide stuff was just always a thing. I can't imagine very many people complaining that they really want one of their characters to have individual reps, or that it's so easy to switch from one character to another that I don't even feel motivated to play. Going further towards account level progression would affect future design as well. The approach could shift away from creating these game features and loops for the purpose of building up characters to instead game features that would, well, one would argue that are character specific, like specific achievements like the Mage Tower, or getting Gladiator, or developing professions, things that make characters feel unique. Farming the same rep kind of the same way with goals that are very closely aligned, not quite as unique. So that was all me talking about the past. Let's talk about the present with Dragonflight. I've got to give credit to the WoW team for taking elements of its features and making them pretty alt-friendly, even if it's not entirely alt-free. Account-wide rep is kind of less of a big deal in Dragonflight, considering just about all of the perks and benefits are account shared, but the few things that are not, like profession recipes, it feels pretty bad. So again, it's not perfect, just, I would say, very thoughtful. As a bit of specific feedback there, I think it's a mistake to have a feature like Renown have a sort of account-wide benefit with exceptions. I think in the future, rep and their rewards should be fully account-wide, which is also kind of me saying that maybe gear and recipes are better off not being on this reputation or renown track, but instead be on something that feels like an individual accomplishment, like a rare drop or an achievement. But let's try reimagining Dragonflight with a champion system in place anyway. So we'll have this menu up and dragon riding talents can go here. The menu will also tell us how many catalyst charges we have available and if we still have the weekly to complete. The entire traveler's log can be here. And let's put the major faction reps here and make the rep gains mostly account-wide. And here are two ideas that I have with Primal Chaos, because there's been a lot of conversations about that too. The first idea is to just have it in as an account-level currency. Ta-da, done. The second idea is a little bit out there, so listen up. Primal Chaos can be an item just like it is now. It's individually earned but shareable. So let's pretend we have 100 Primal Chaos in our inventory, in our bags, but we want our alts to have access to them. So what we can do is throw the 100 Primal Chaos into the champion menu, press OK to confirm, and then it turns into 80 Primal Chaos that any other character on the account can pull back down. So it's a tax, and you might hate it. I'm just demonstrating what the WoW team can decide to do. What I'm trying to get at here is that the champion system, if there is one, can facilitate all sorts of account level stuff, including acting as that vendor that we'd otherwise have to find and talk to and then use to trade it. The difference is that functionally, the work towards that is already done, and the WoW team can just kind of pull a lever and activate this account sharing feature. So like maybe week 1, Primal Chaos cannot be shared via the champion menu, but on week 5, then okay, cool, guys, we can do it now. As for account-wide reputation, we can make a couple of tweaks. Let's say the campaign and side quests, like the reputation rewards from that, are one-time only and go directly to the entire account. Daily and world quests can be completed by multiple characters, but the reputation will only be awarded at the full value the first time, and maybe afterwards it either doesn't give anything or it just gives a diminishing return. And the same could go for rares and other world activities, kind of like how it is now. And that's actually kind of it. That's kind of the extent for account level progression in Dragonflight, because those borrowed power features like essences and soul binds that caused a lot of frustration for players, it's not really here. In fact, well, now that I think about it, maybe a champion menu is not needed after all, at least not for Dragonflight. Like, it would work great with borrowed power gimmicks like Azerite essences, but with Dragonflight the way it is right now, some changes in the approach and a few tweaks can fully realize that feeling of account level progression. I mentioned earlier that there's a distinction between what sorts of progression could be shared and what makes sense to be like separate or specific to the character. So let's now talk about patch 10.0.7 and this exploration of the Scarab Vault. I feel like this is a good implementation of account shareable access with character specific progression. So in a nutshell, and this is kind of a preview here, in the upcoming minor patch, we're going to explore a vault. We're going to need keys that are farmed from zone content. What we ultimately get is a ring with some special effects. Now, it's not meant to break the game, it's just a fun piece of gear to play with that stays viable for at least for a little while. Would the champion menu or an account shared currency tab apply here? Yeah, sure. Keys are intended to be tradable account-wide, so here they'll just shoot right into the system like any other currency, and that's it. But progression into the vault and building up that ring, that is going to be entirely character specific. It wouldn't be much fun if I were to, take one character, open up a bunch of these doors, and then all my other characters, when I get on, they just log in, go into the vault, and it's just fully open and they just loot? I question if it sounds very fun. So instead, individuals will be using their keys to explore the vault and be the one who puts in the work to develop their ring. It's not so different from having an individual character put in the work to complete that raid set or to craft mythic level gear. Now, is that an arbitrary decision? Maybe, maybe not. So after these many long minutes of bluster, where'd we end up? One, I guess it would really have been nice to have had account level progression in the past, especially with expansion features that had borrowed power. Two, if a borrowed power gimmick does come back in Dragonflight or later expansions, it better be on some sort of account-wide platform that is player-friendly. 3, Dragonflight is a very big step in the right direction. And 4, we've identified that there are tweaks, big and small, that can be made to elevate features onto this account level that doesn't feel like toe-stepping, that doesn't feel too awkward. Currencies are pretty easy. Reps can be easy with some exceptions, like, hey, maybe you want one of your characters to be friendly with the Bloodsail Buccaneers while everyone else hates them. And that's pretty much it. I'm pretty gassed. I hope you enjoyed this talk, and if so, hit the like button, subscribe to the channel, catch me on Twitch. I'd love chatting about this, and I'd love to read your comments, so let it all out in the thing below. I'll see you guys for the next thing, and until then, stay safe, stay healthy, and stay breezy.